I'm Abigail Mitchell, 32, and I never thought an email could shatter my world. Growing up, I always felt like the understudy to my brother James's lead role in our family. But nothing prepared me for what happened last Christmas. No invitation to dinner, just an $8,100 invoice for my brother's European vacation. My parents chose him again, but this time, I chose myself. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family. Growing up in Brookline, an affluent Boston suburb, should have been idyllic. Our colonial-style house, with its manicured lawn and heated swimming pool, looked perfect from the outside. My parents, Elizabeth and Robert Mitchell, provided everything we needed materially. Dad was a successful investment banker, Mom a former corporate attorney who became a stay-at-home mother when James was born. On paper, we were the American dream. But inside those pristine walls, I always felt like I was auditioning for a role I'd never get. From my earliest memories, James was the son our family orbited around. 3 years younger than me, he had this effortless charm that made everyone gravitate toward him. His blue eyes, identical to my father's, would light up and somehow rules would bend. James is just more sensitive, Mom would say when he'd throw tantrums about bedtime while I dutifully followed the 8:30 p.m. rule. He's artistic, Dad would explain when James failed math, the same subject I received stern lectures about needing to excel in for college applications. When I turned 16, I wanted a car, not even a new one. I'd saved $3,000 from 2 years of babysitting and summer jobs. My parents told me they'd match half if I maintained my 4.0 GPA. I did and got a used Honda Civic. 6 months later, James turned 16. Dad came home with a brand new Jeep Wrangler, wrapped in a giant red bow. No conditions. No savings required. Your brother needs confidence, Mom explained when she saw my face. You've always been so independent, Abby. Independent wasn't a choice. It was the only option I had. College followed the same pattern. I applied to 7 schools, got into Princeton, my dream school, but only received partial scholarship. We can contribute $10,000 a year, my father announced. The rest is on you. It'll build character. I graduated with $87,000 in student loans. 2 years later, James got accepted to NYU for photography, not exactly a practical degree in my parents' usual assessment. Yet they covered every penny of his $280,000 education, including a luxury apartment in Manhattan because dorms would stifle his creativity. Despite everything, I excelled. I graduated with honors, moved to Chicago for an entry-level marketing position, and climbed the corporate ladder through sheer determination. 6 years later, at 32, I became the youngest senior marketing director at Horizon Media Group, managing campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. My apartment in Lincoln Park isn't extravagant, but it's mine. Every piece of furniture, every artwork on the wall, I purchased with money I earned. My social circle consists of genuine friends who appreciate me for who I am, not what I can provide. And Ryan, my boyfriend of 2 years, sees me in ways my family never did. You're incredible, Abby, he'd say, watching me prepare presentations late into the night. Your drive amazes me. 3 months before last Christmas, I received a promotion that came with a substantial raise. I was ecstatic, immediately calling my parents to share the news. That's nice, honey, Mom said, distracted. Did I tell you James is dating a gallery owner's daughter? This could be his big break. 20 minutes of James updates later, she had to go. My promotion remained unacknowledged. Holidays with my family were always an exercise in emotional endurance. Each Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'd fly to Boston, bearing carefully selected gifts and prepared anecdotes that painted my life as successful without seeming boastful. I'd listen to endless stories about James's latest photography exhibition or travel adventure, nodding and smiling appropriately. You're so lucky to have such a stable job, Abby, Mom would say, as if my career achievements were some consolation prize compared to James's artistic pursuits. Yet, I kept trying. I sent birthday cards, called weekly, remembered their anniversaries. I maintained the connection not because they deserved it, but because I thought family should matter. Blood should be thicker than water, right? 2 weeks before last Christmas, Mom called, which was unusual. I was typically the one initiating contact. Abby, darling, how are you? Her voice had that high-pitched quality it got when she was uncomfortable. I'm good. Busy with end-of-year campaigns, I replied, immediately sensing something was off. That's wonderful. Listen, about Christmas this year, things might be a little different. My stomach tightened. Different how? Well, we're doing some renovations on the house. The dining room is completely torn apart. It's going to be quite cramped. It was a bizarre excuse. Their house had 3 reception rooms and a conservatory. I can sleep on the couch if the guest room is affected, I offered. It's not just that, she continued, her voice trailing. James is bringing Melissa, and you know how your father gets when too many people are around during the holidays. Yes, I knew exactly how my father got during holidays. He became the jovial patriarch who mixed perfect old fashions and told embarrassing stories about James's childhood adventures, while mine remained conspicuously absent from the family lore. So what are you saying, Mom? Maybe this year it might be easier if we keep it small. That was the first indication that for the first time in my adult life, I wouldn't be welcome at my family's Christmas table. As December progressed, my inbox remained conspicuously empty of any formal Christmas invitation. In previous years, Mom would send an email by the first week of December outlining the holiday schedule with military precision. Christmas Eve dinner at 7 p.m., church service at 11 p.m., presents Christmas morning at 9 a.m. sharp, followed by brunch. By December 15th, with flights filling up and prices soaring, I couldn't ignore the silence any longer. I called home on my lunch break, pacing around my office with the door closed. Hi, Mom. I was wondering about the Christmas plans. I need to book my flight soon. There was a pause on the line, too long to be natural. Oh, Abby, didn't I mention? We're doing things differently this year. In the background, I could hear my father's voice. Tell her we're just keeping it to the 3 of us and Melissa. The renovation makes it too crowded. My hand tightened around the phone. Mom, are you saying I'm not invited to Christmas? Another pause. Not invited, darling. It's just that with the dining room being renovated and James bringing Melissa, the timing isn't ideal. You understand, don't you? You're so good at understanding. That was my role in the family, the one who understood, who accommodated, who never made waves. So James and his girlfriend of 3 months are invited, but I'm not? My voice remained steady, though my free hand had curled into a fist. Melissa needs to experience a proper Mitchell family Christmas, Mom explained, as if I were asking about a stranger, rather than my own exclusion. And you've had 32 of them already. 32 Christmases where I sat at the table feeling like an audience member rather than part of the cast. 32 Christmases of watching James receive thoughtful, expensive gifts while I got scented candles and generic sweaters. I see. I've forced myself to sound neutral. Well, thanks for letting me know. You're not upset, are you? You've always been so independent. I thought you might even be relieved not to make the trip. You're probably so busy with work. I'm not upset, I lied. I'll figure something out. That's my girl. Always so practical. We'll FaceTime on Christmas Day, of course. After hanging up, I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen without seeing it. The office Christmas party continued down the hall, laughter and holiday music creating a surreal soundtrack to my exclusion. I called Stephanie my best friend since college. They did what? She exploded after I explained. That's not doing things differently. That's uninviting you from your family Christmas while including your brother and his brand new girlfriend. That's messed up, Abby. Maybe it really is about the renovation, I offered weakly. Oh, please. Your parents' house is bigger than most hotels. This is next-level favoritism. Deep down, I knew she was right. Still, admitting it felt like failure. Like confirming I wasn't worth including. That evening, Ryan came over with takeout Thai food, listening as I recounted the conversation. "Stay here for Christmas," he said, taking my hand. "Come to my family's celebration. My mom already asks about you constantly." The thought of spending Christmas with Ryan's warm, chaotic family, his parents, 3 sisters, their partners, and 5 nieces and nephews, was tempting. They were loud, affectionate, and genuinely interested in each other's lives. "I don't want to intrude on your family time," I hedged. "Abby," Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. "You wouldn't be intruding. They want you there. Unlike some people, they actually value you." I spent the next week trying to convince myself it didn't matter. I was an adult. Christmas was just another day. I had Ryan, Stephanie, and other friends who cared about me. Missing one family Christmas wasn't the end of the world. Yet each night, I'd find myself scrolling through my mother's social media posts, pictures of their fully decorated house, the dining room looking completely untouched by any renovation, the massive tree in the living room with presents already piled beneath it. One photo showed 4 stockings hanging from the mantel, Mom, Dad, James, and one presumably for Melissa. For 32 years, there had been a stocking with my name embroidered across the top. Where was it now? Packed away in the attic? Given to Goodwill? The thought of it made my chest ache. On December 23rd, my mother sent a group text with a photo of James and Melissa arriving at the house, luggage in hand. "The family is together for Christmas," the caption read. I stared at the word family until my vision blurred. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I turned off my phone and helped Ryan wrap presents for his nieces and nephews, trying to focus on the Christmas I would have rather than the one I was denied. December 28th. The artificial Christmas tree in my apartment still twinkled in the corner, surrounded by gifts from Ryan, Stephanie, and other friends. Despite my initial disappointment, Christmas with Ryan's family had been genuinely enjoyable. His mother had insisted I help make her secret recipe cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. His father had called me kiddo and poured me extra bourbon in my eggnog, and his nieces had climbed into my lap during present opening, asking if I would braid their hair the pretty way later. It was warmth without conditions, inclusion without audition. My phone pinged with an email notification. My father's name appeared in the sender line with the subject "Financial Matters, Urgent." Dad rarely emailed me. Our communication typically passed through Mom, or during the obligatory 5 minutes he'd speak to me when I called home. My finger hovered over the notification. The last time he'd contacted me directly was 3 years ago when he needed information for his accountant about my student loans. I clicked open the email. Abigail. Attached, please find an invoice for family expenses incurred during the 4th quarter. As you are now in a senior position with appropriate compensation, it is time for you to contribute to family costs proportionate to your means. Payment due by January 15th. Regards, Robert Mitchell. No, Merry Christmas. No, how are you? Just a demand for money with a deadline. I opened the attached PDF, certain there must be some mistake. It was a formal invoice created with accounting software, bearing my father's company letterhead. At the top in bold letters, invoice #4328, B, amount due, $8,100. Below was an itemized list. 1. James Mitchell, professional development trip to Europe, Paris, Rome, Amsterdam, $4,200. 2. Melissa Gardner, travel companion expenses, $2,800. 3. Professional photography equipment upgrade, $1,100. The invoice included bank details for wire transfer and a note. Late payment will incur 1.5% weekly interest. I stared at my screen, unable to process what I was seeing. My parents had excluded me from Christmas dinner, A dinner that apparently had plenty of room for James and his new girlfriend, and now were billing me $8,100 for my brother's European vacation and camera equipment. My phone rang. Stephanie's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, I just got the weirdest email from my dad," I said in lieu of greeting. "What kind of weird?" "The kind where they send me an $8,100 invoice for James's trip to Europe with his girlfriend. And new camera equipment." "They what?" Stephanie's voice rose so high it crackled through the speaker. "Tell me you're joking." I forwarded her the email while we were still on the phone. "Holy shit, Abby. This is real? This isn't some kind of bizarre joke." "Apparently not. It has my father's company letterhead and everything. But they excluded you from Christmas and then want you to pay for your brother's luxury vacation? That's beyond favoritism. That's exploitation." The word hit me like a slap. Exploitation. Had I been so normalized to being treated as less than that I couldn't recognize when I was being used? "You need to call them," Stephanie insisted. "Right now." Hands shaking, I called my parents' home phone. Dad answered on the second ring. "Abigail, I assume you received my email." "Dad, what is this? Why are you sending me an invoice for James's trip?" "As I explained in the email, you're in a financial position to contribute to family expenses. James needed that trip for his portfolio development. The European architecture series he shot will be featured in Melissa's gallery next month. But why am I paying for it?" "And for his girlfriend to go along. Melissa provided essential artistic direction," he replied, as if it were perfectly reasonable. "And you make good money now. Your brother is still establishing himself in a competitive field." "Dad, I wasn't even invited to Christmas dinner." There was a pause. "That's a separate issue." The house was crowded with the renovation. "What renovation?" "Mom's been posting pictures of the house all month." "Nothing's being renovated." Another pause. "The plans changed. Regardless, this invoice reflects your fair share of family expenses." "Fair share?" "I paid my own way through college. I have student loans I'm still paying off. James got a free ride, and now you want me to fund his vacation. Your brother has different needs. His career requires travel and equipment. Your corporate job provides stability." The stability I'd fought for. The stability I'd earned without their help. "Put Mom on the phone, please." I heard muffled voices, then my mother's tentative hello. "Mom, did you know about this invoice?" "Well, yes, darling. Your father and I discussed it. James really needed this opportunity, and we've been supporting him for so long. We thought since you're doing so well now." "You canceled my Christmas invitation but want me to pay for James's trip with his girlfriend?" "We didn't cancel, Abby. We just postponed your visit. And the trip was already booked before we realized the house would be too crowded." I took a deep breath. "Have you ever sent James an invoice for anything I needed?" "That's different. You've always been so independent, so capable." "Because I had to be. I didn't have a choice." "Abby, please don't raise your voice. This is exactly why we thought a quieter Christmas made sense this year. You've been so stressed with work." The conversation continued in circles. Every question I asked was deflected with praise for my independence or references to James's special needs as an artist. Before hanging up, I learned one final detail that crystallized everything. My parents had promised to send me a check for $500 for my birthday in November, a rare gesture of financial support from them. The check never arrived. Now I understood why. They'd canceled it to help cover James's trip. After the call, I sat in stunned silence. All the years of unequal treatment flashed before me, not as isolated incidents, but as a pattern so clear it was impossible to unsee. My parents didn't see me as their daughter entitled to the same love and support as their son. They saw me as a resource to be tapped when their golden child needed more than they could provide. For the first time, I allowed myself to truly feel the anger that had been simmering beneath the surface for decades. "They're never going to change," Stephanie said over wine at my apartment the next evening. "You realize that, right?" I nodded, staring into my glass. I think I've always known. I just didn't want to believe it. What are you going to do about the invoice? Ryan asked, his arm protectively around my shoulders. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to pay it just to avoid the conflict. Another part wants to tell them to go to hell. The fact that you're even considering paying it shows how conditioned you are to accept their treatment, Stephanie pointed out. Would James ever receive an invoice for something you needed? We all knew the answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out old photo albums from my childhood, searching for evidence that I'd somehow misremembered our family dynamic. Maybe there were times when my parents had shown me the same unconditional support they gave James. The photos told the same story I already knew. James front and center at family gatherings. James with arms around both parents. Me often slightly separated, sometimes literally in the background. In one Christmas photo, James sat surrounded by open presents, a new gaming system, a mountain bike, designer clothes, while I held up a journal and scarf, smiling that tight smile I'd perfected to hide disappointment. By 3 a.m., I was searching through emails, finding patterns I'd normalized for years. Abby, could you send James $200 for his car repair? We're a bit tight this month. While they were vacationing in Bermuda. Your brother needs to focus on his exhibition. Could you call and wish him luck? He's feeling nervous. On the day of my surgery. We're so proud of James for pursuing his passion. When he quit his third job in a year. Congratulations on your promotion, honey. Can you help us set up our new phones when you visit? My promotion to management, reduced to tech support. The next morning, bleary-eyed from lack of sleep, I called my therapist, Dr. Winters, and asked for an emergency session. What you're describing is a classic golden child/scapegoat dynamic, she explained after listening to my story. It's a form of family dysfunction where one child receives most of the positive attention, while another shoulders the family's expectations and responsibilities. But why? My voice cracked. What did I do wrong? Nothing, Abby. These roles are assigned early, often unconsciously. They rarely reflect anything about the children themselves. They're about the parents' needs and issues. So what do I do about this invoice? That depends on what outcome you want. Paying it maintains the status quo. Refusing forces a confrontation that might change your relationship with your family, for better or worse. What if I lose them completely? Despite everything, the thought terrified me. Ask yourself this. Do you currently have the relationship you actually want with them, or the relationship you've been pretending is enough? The question hit hard. I'd been accepting scraps from the family table for my entire life, convincing myself it was a feast. That evening, I couldn't focus on anything. Ryan suggested a walk along Lake Michigan to clear my head. The December wind whipped across the water, bitter cold but clarifying. I keep thinking about what Dr. Winters said. I told him, our breaths forming clouds in the frigid air. About whether I have the relationship I want with my family. And do you? He asked simply. No. I have the relationship I've settled for because I was afraid of having no relationship at all. I stopped walking, turning to face him. I'm tired of being afraid, Ryan. I'm tired of being the responsible one who gets nothing in return. So, what are you going to do? For 3 more days, I oscillated between options, sleep-deprived and anxiety-ridden. Pay the invoice and maintain the peace. Refuse and face the fallout. Each path seemed equally terrifying. Then a strange thought occurred to me. I was still an authorized user on my parents' credit card accounts, arrangements made during college that had never been updated. I hadn't used the cards in years, but technically I still had access. This realization sparked something in me, not a desire for revenge, but a recognition of my own power in this situation. For the first time, I saw clearly how my financial independence could be both my shield and my voice. After another session with Dr. Winters focused on setting healthy boundaries, I made my decision. I wouldn't just respond to the invoice. I would redefine my relationship with my family on my terms. I need to take a stand, I told Ryan that night. Not out of spite, but because nothing will change if I don't. I'm with you, he said, squeezing my hand. Whatever you decide. I spent hours researching family dynamics and narcissistic family systems, recognizing patterns that had defined my life. I calculated exactly how much my parents had spent on James compared to me over the years, not to hold it against them, but to confirm the reality I'd always felt but couldn't prove. The numbers were staggering. College alone represented a difference of nearly $300,000, not including the Manhattan apartment. Birthday and Christmas gifts showed a consistent pattern. Items for James typically cost 3 to 5 times what mine did. With clarity came resolve. I knew exactly what my response would be. You're still an authorized user on their credit cards? Stephanie's eyes widened when I explained my discovery. All of them. 3 major ones, as far as I know. I haven't used them since college, but legally, I could. Are you thinking what I think you're thinking? Her expression was part concern, part admiration. I'm not going to charge anything, I clarified quickly. I'm not looking for revenge. But being removed as an authorized user is a step I should have taken years ago. It's a financial boundary I need to set. I scheduled an appointment with Andrea Fisher, the financial advisor I'd been working with since paying off my student loans. Her office overlooked the Chicago River, the city's skyscrapers providing a backdrop that reminded me of how far I'd come on my own. Removing yourself as an authorized user won't affect your credit score significantly, Andrea explained after hearing my situation. You've established your own credit history. But I'd recommend doing it for all accounts simultaneously, so there's no opportunity for new charges to be added before you complete the process. Can I do it without them being notified immediately? When you're removed, they won't receive an automatic notification. But they'll notice when they get their next statement and your name is no longer listed. Or sooner if they try to check your status online. I nodded, making notes. And what about a response to this invoice? Any professional advice? Andrea leaned back in her chair, choosing her words carefully. Professionally speaking, this isn't a valid invoice. You didn't agree to these expenses, you received no benefit from them, and there was no contract. You have no legal obligation to pay. And personally speaking? Personally? She smiled slightly. I'd tell them exactly what I thought of their accounting practices. That afternoon, I called each credit card company, explaining that I needed to be removed as an authorized user on my parents' accounts. Each representative asked the same questions. Was there fraudulent activity? Was I concerned about liability? I simply stated that I was establishing financial independence. 3 calls, 3 confirmations. Within an hour, my financial entanglement with my parents was severed. It felt both terrifying and liberating. Next, I needed to craft my response to the invoice. I wrote draft after draft, each one either too angry or too apologetic. Nothing captured the complex emotions I needed to express. Ryan found me surrounded by crumpled paper at my desk that evening. Still working on your response? He asked, setting a cup of tea beside me. Nothing feels right. If I'm too harsh, I'm the villain. If I'm too nice, nothing changes. He sat on the edge of the desk. What if your response isn't about the words at all? That's when the idea crystallized. Words had failed me in this family for decades. Perhaps actions would speak louder. I researched exactly how much my parents had contributed to my education and upbringing compared to James. I created a spreadsheet documenting each disparity: college tuition, living expenses, vehicles, extracurricular activities, even estimated Christmas and birthday gifts. The pattern was undeniable and quantifiable. In my second emergency therapy session that week, Dr. Winters helped me process my emotions and clarify my intentions. This isn't about punishing them, I explained. It's about finally acknowledging the truth we've all been dancing around my entire life. And what truth is that, Abby? That I've never been equally valued in my family. That I've been expected to give more and receive less. That my worth has always been measured differently than my brother's. What do you hope will happen when you respond? I thought about it carefully. Best case scenario? They recognize the pattern and we begin to build a healthier relationship. Worst case? They cut me off completely. I took a deep breath. But I realize now that what I have with them isn't much of a relationship anyway. It's an arrangement where I keep showing up hoping for approval I never receive. That's an important recognition, Dr. Winters nodded. Are you prepared for either outcome? For the first time, I could honestly answer yes. That night, I wrote one final draft of my response letter. Simple, direct, without accusation or apology. Then I went to my bank and withdrew $1 in cash. I purchased a blank greeting card with a winter scene on the front, not explicitly Christmas-themed, but reminiscent of the holiday I'd been excluded from. Inside the card, I wrote just 7 words. Santa skipped me too. Merry Christmas anyway. I placed the dollar bill and my letter in the card, then sealed it in an envelope addressed to my parents. I added a certified mail receipt request, not out of pettiness, but because I needed confirmation this chapter wouldn't be swept under the rug like so many others. As I dropped the envelope in the mailbox, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a weight I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten it wasn't supposed to be there. The certified mail receipt arrived in my email 3 days later. My parents had received my response. Then silence. No calls. No texts. No emails. The silence lasted exactly 27 hours before my phone exploded with notifications. First, a series of text messages from my father. What is the meaning of this dollar bill? Call me immediately. This is completely unacceptable, Abigail. Then voicemails, his voice progressively rising in anger. I just received notice that you've removed yourself from our credit accounts. Explain yourself. Your mother is extremely upset. This childish behavior needs to stop now. If this is about the invoice, we can discuss payment plans. My mother's approach was different, a single, tearful voicemail. Abby, honey, why are you doing this to us? After everything we've done for you? Your father is furious. Please call and fix this. Everything they'd done for me. The phrase stuck in my craw. What exactly did she think they'd done for me that earned them the right to invoice me for my brother's vacation? James's contribution came next, aggressive text messages accusing me of selfishness. Way to make everything about you as usual. Mom's been crying all day. You know I need that equipment for my career. Not everyone gets a cushy corporate job. Did it ever occur to you that maybe they give me more because I actually make time for them instead of running away to Chicago? The family narrative was being rewritten in real time. Suddenly I was the villain who abandoned the family, not the daughter who'd been uninvited from Christmas. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I forwarded the messages to Dr. Winters and focused on my work, though concentration proved nearly impossible. By evening, the extended family had joined the fray. Cousins I barely spoke to sent messages asking why I was attacking Uncle Robert and Aunt Elizabeth. My mother's sister suggested I needed to remember family comes first. Then came a surprise, a text from my father's sister, Aunt Catherine. Can we talk? Not about them. About you. Catherine had always been somewhat distant from our family gatherings, appearing briefly at major events, but never staying long. As a child, I'd assumed she just didn't like family functions. Now I wondered if there was more to the story. We met at a quiet cafe the following weekend. Catherine was 15 years younger than my father, with the same sharp blue eyes, but a warmth his never contained. I got a call from your mother, she began after we'd settled with our coffees. She was quite upset about some dollar bill and credit cards. I'm sure she was, I replied cautiously. Catherine studied me for a moment. You know, you look just like our grandmother, my mother. She was the responsible one too. What do you mean? In her family. For siblings, but she was the one expected to care for their parents, manage the finances, be the sensible one. Catherine stirred her coffee. Sound familiar? Did Dad do the same thing to you that they're doing to me? I asked directly. She smiled sadly. Robert was the golden child. Always was. I was the afterthought, the surprise baby my parents hadn't planned for. I paid my own way through community college while they funded his Ivy League education. I got lectured about responsibility while he got bailed out of every bad decision. The parallels were striking. So, it's a family pattern. Generational, she nodded. And it won't change unless someone breaks it. Is that why you stay away from family gatherings? I learned my worth wasn't dependent on their recognition of it. I built my own life, my own family. I show up when I want to, not because I'm seeking approval I'll never get. For the first time, I felt truly understood by a member of my family. We talked for hours, Catherine sharing stories that could have been mine with different names and dates. The same expectations, the same disparities, the same excuses. I'm proud of you, she said as we prepared to leave. Standing up to them takes courage. Whatever happens next, remember you did nothing wrong by expecting to be treated equally. Her words fortified me for what came next, a 3-hour phone call with my parents that evening. I hadn't planned to answer when they called, but something in me felt ready for the confrontation. Abigail, this has gone far enough, my father began without preamble. Your mother and I expect you to apologize and pay the invoice as requested. I'm not apologizing, Dad. And I'm not paying for James's vacation. This isn't about the money, he insisted. It's about your responsibility to the family. My responsibility? What about your responsibility to treat your children equally? We've always treated you and James according to your individual needs, my mother interjected, her voice wobbling. You're just different people. You're right. We are different. James needs constant support, validation, and funding. I apparently need nothing from you, not even a place at the Christmas table. That's not fair, Abby, Mom protested. The renovation. There was no renovation. I finally raised my voice. I saw all the pictures you posted. The dining room was perfectly intact. You excluded me and then tried to bill me for James's trip in the same month. Can you honestly not see how hurtful that is? The conversation cycled through familiar patterns. My mother cried. My father dismissed my concerns as oversensitivity. I was accused of jealousy, ingratitude, and failing to understand how families work. But something had changed. I was no longer desperate for their approval or afraid of their disapproval. I could see the manipulation in real time. I've calculated exactly how much more you've spent on James than on me, I told them calmly. Would you like to hear the numbers? This isn't about mathematics, my father snapped. Actually, an invoice is exactly about mathematics. You sent me one, remember? For the first time in my life, I laid out every inequity I'd experienced, from college funding to Christmas gifts, from emotional support to practical help. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply stated facts they couldn't refute. My father dismissed my evidence. You've always been financially responsible. James is an artist. My mother tried a different approach. Honey, we're getting older. We need to know we can count on you when the time comes. The implication was clear. Despite the lifetime of favoritism toward James, I was expected to be the responsible caretaker when they aged. I'll always be there for you as your daughter, I said carefully. But not as your blank check or your unpaid caretaker. Those days are over. After I hung up, I felt drained but strangely peaceful. I'd spoken my truth without apology. Whatever happened next, I'd broken the cycle of silent acceptance. To my surprise, James called the following day. His tone was different, less aggressive, more uncertain. Mom and Dad are really upset, he began. I know. A long pause. The thing is, Abby, I never asked them to send you an invoice. I didn't even know they did that until yesterday. Would you have stopped them if you knew? Another pause. I don't know. Probably not. At least he was honest. It's always been easy to accept what they give me. I know, James. That's not really your fault. But I'm not a kid anymore. I should have questioned it more. His voice dropped. Do you hate me? No, I answered truthfully. I don't hate you. But I do need things to change. I don't know how to be different in this family, he admitted. I've always been the favorite. It's comfortable. I'm sure it is. But it's destroyed my relationship with all of you. We talked for nearly an hour, the most real conversation we'd ever had. James revealed his own insecurities beneath the privileged facade, the pressure to succeed artistically when he sometimes wondered if he had any real talent, the fear that he couldn't survive without our parents' support, the knowledge that he'd never developed the resilience I had. "You're the strong one," he said. "You always have been." Not by choice, I reminded him. We ended the call with no promises but a new understanding. Whether it would translate to real change remained to be seen. Over the next several months, my relationship with my family transformed. My parents made awkward, halting attempts at more balanced treatment. Sometimes they succeeded, often they fell back into old patterns. But the silent acceptance was gone. Each time they treated James preferentially, I called it out calmly and directly. The first family gathering after the Invoice incident was my father's birthday in April. The tension was palpable, conversations stilted. James brought his portfolio to show everyone, a habitual center of attention move. But when he finished, he turned to me and asked about my recent marketing campaign. A small gesture, but unprecedented. My mother pulled me aside as I was leaving. "I owe you an apology," she said, her voice low. "For Christmas. For a lot of things." It wasn't a comprehensive acknowledgement of decades of inequity, but it was a start. My father found it harder to change. His vision of family was hierarchical, with him at the top and everyone slotted into roles he'd assigned. But even he began making small adjustments, asking about my work, remembering details about my life, acknowledging my achievements without immediately pivoting to James. The invoice was never mentioned again. No payment was ever made. 6 months after receiving that outrageous invoice, my life had changed in ways I couldn't have predicted. The confrontation that I'd feared for decades had actually been liberating rather than devastating. My relationship with my parents was different, not perfect, but more honest. The facade of family harmony had been replaced by something more authentic. We argued sometimes. I stated boundaries clearly. They occasionally respected them. James, surprisingly, showed the most growth. Our conversation had sparked something in him, perhaps recognition of his own role in our family's dysfunction. He started therapy, took a part-time job at a photography studio, and began paying for more of his own expenses. He still received more support from our parents than I ever had, but the blatant inequity had diminished. "I never realized how much I was missing by always being the favorite," he told me during one of our now regular phone calls. "I never had to develop resilience or self-reliance. I'm 30 years old and just learning skills you mastered at 18. My mother made tentative efforts to balance her attention and affection. She called regularly, asked questions about my life, and actually listened to the answers. When she slipped into old patterns, talking excessively about James or dismissing my achievements, I gently pointed it out. Sometimes she adjusted, sometimes she became defensive. But the pattern was acknowledged rather than ignored. My father found change hardest. His generation and personality resisted the vulnerability required for real connection. But even he made efforts, sending an email congratulating me on a successful campaign, remembering my birthday with a card that contained an actual personal message rather than just his signature. The family dynamic hadn't transformed overnight. Decades of established patterns couldn't be erased in 6 months. But the ground had shifted, creating space for a different kind of relationship to grow. In my personal life, the changes were even more profound. The confidence I gained from standing up for myself translated to every area of my life. At work, I became more assertive, proposing bold campaign ideas that previously I might have kept to myself. I received another promotion, this one coming with a team of my own to manage. Ryan noticed the change immediately. "You carry yourself differently," he observed. "Like you finally believe what I've always known, that you're extraordinary." Our relationship deepened as I learned to accept love without constantly questioning whether I deserved it. 6 months after the Invoice incident, he proposed during a weekend trip to Michigan's wine country. I said yes without hesitation or doubt. My friendship with Stephanie strengthened as well. She'd been my rock through the entire ordeal, offering unwavering support without judgment. "You know what's amazing?" she said over brunch one Sunday. "Watching you finally demand the respect you've always deserved. It's like you've given yourself permission to take up space." Perhaps the most significant change was my relationship with myself. The constant need for validation and approval that had driven me since childhood began to fade. I continued therapy, working through the lingering effects of growing up as the less favored child. Dr. Winters helped me recognize patterns of people-pleasing and perfectionism that had developed as responses to my family dynamic. Inspired by my own experience, I developed a financial independence workshop for women, focusing on those from family situations similar to mine. The first session filled immediately, with attendees sharing stories that echoed my own. The workshop became a monthly event, creating a community of women learning to establish financial and emotional boundaries. "Your story helped me stand up to my own family," one participant told me after a session. "I never realized I was allowed to expect equal treatment until I heard you talk about your experience." In July, my parents invited me to their anniversary dinner, a small gathering at their home. It was my first time back since the Christmas I'd been excluded from. Walking into that house felt strange, both familiar and different. My mother had redecorated the living room, replacing the formal furniture with more comfortable pieces. Family photos lined the mantel, including several of me that hadn't been displayed before. "We found these when we were organizing the attic," Mom explained, noticing me looking at them. "I realized we didn't have enough pictures of you around the house." Dinner was awkward, but not unbearable. James brought Melissa, who turned out to be surprisingly thoughtful and intelligent. My father made an effort to ask about my work. My mother served my favorite dessert, something she'd rarely done in the past. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside while the others were in the living room. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I'm sorry, Abby. Truly sorry. I didn't realize how much we were hurting you all these years. You excluded me from Christmas, Mom, then tried to bill me for James's vacation. How could you not realize that would hurt?" She looked down. "When you're in a pattern for so long, you stop seeing it. James was always so demanding, so needy. You were so confident, so self-sufficient. It was easier to focus on him. Easier isn't the same as right. I know that now." She reached for my hand. "I can't change the past, but I'm trying to do better going forward." It wasn't a perfect apology. It didn't erase decades of unequal treatment. But it was acknowledgement, and that was something I'd never received before. My father found his own way to communicate change. As we were leaving, he handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked, suspicious of envelopes from him after the Invoice incident. "Open it later," was all he said. In the car, I tore it open to find a check for $8,100, the exact amount of the invoice he'd sent me 6 months earlier. No note. No explanation. Just the check. It wasn't an apology in words, but it was the closest my father could come to admitting he'd been wrong. I didn't cash the check. Instead, I framed it and hung it in my home office, a reminder that I had the power to change patterns that seemed unchangeable, to demand respect when it wasn't freely given, to value myself even when others didn't. The invoice that was meant to diminish me became the receipt for my freedom. Standing up for yourself isn't easy, especially when it means confronting the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. But sometimes, that confrontation is necessary for healing, both for yourself and, potentially, for your relationships. I don't know what the future holds for my family. Patterns established over decades don't disappear overnight. But I do know that I'll never again accept being valued less than I deserve, by my family or anyone else. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who treated you unfairly? What helped you find the courage to draw boundaries? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else currently struggling with similar issues. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they deserve equal treatment and respect in all their relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to treat yourself.